Investment advisory services offered by Pryor McCormick Investments, an Alabama-registered investment advisor. Securities offered through Stern AG Financial Services Incorporated. Member FINRA SIPC. Pryor McCormick Investments and Stern AG Financial Services Incorporated are not affiliated companies.
635 Superstation 101 WYDE. Time to talk about your money just a little bit. Jim McCormick, he's the McCormick of Pryor McCormick. Usually Steve's here. Steve loves the radio. He does a good job, doesn't he?
Steve does like the radio. I think he practices in his office.
He picked this song, by the way.
Yes, he did.
What's this song called, AJ?
Oh, this is Tax to the Max.
Tax to the Max.
By Tower of People.
There it is. Steve's a musician, so he likes
Absolutely.
Jim McCormick joining us tonight. We're just going to kick money around. And look, we'll take your phone calls, too. If you got generic questions, sort of broad questions, something you've been trying to understand, Jim's here to help us sort it out. These guys are experts, and we do this stuff on Wednesday nights to help you get through the week. Our main goal is to have folks find some confidence and find some strategy, and just we kid around with the phrase, but it's really don't retire broke. So many folks are nervous right now. Jim, let's just talk about the headlines of the day to get started. How did the markets do today? How are we looking?
Markets are up today, and if you look at the biggest declines in the market, it typically comes through fear of tapering.
Yeah,
essentially
tapering.
Essentially that we'll get off the government stimulus, the bond buying programs. That's the big down days. That's when that happens. It doesn't appear that they're going to taper in September like we thought they were going to 2 weeks ago. Everything's changing too fast.
You get a sense that the Fed sort of lets off the gas, let the market react a little bit,
absolutely.
And then they kind of go back and say, well, maybe not, and then let everything settle, and they're just easing out. That's the tapering. It's psychological.
I think so. When Bernanke misspoke in June, I don't think I think he intended to misspeak in June, and that's when the market started to go down towards the end of June, when he said we might start to taper. I think that was planned. I don't think he slipped up. He's not one to really get on national television and make tremendous mistakes.
Yeah. So they're easing us into the psychology that they're going to quit printing free money.
Eventually.
Will the markets be able to stair-step this thing, have a reaction, take a hit, go back, do it again, build it back up? Because we're back close to 15,000 now all of a sudden.
We are.
Last Wednesday was horrible.
I think one of the largest things that people have to be mindful of is you had $60 billion that were taken out of bond mutual funds in the month of June. That is the largest redemption of record.
Sure.
So the problem there is when you're in a mutual fund, you're in a mutual fund with thousands of other people. And if they want to sell, that mutual fund manager has to sell his assets in the open market to create cash to give it to the other party.
Right.
That's redemption. And those can be dangerous because you are in those investments with a lot of other people, and their behavior affects your results.
Interesting. All right, let's talk about the other headline, of course, that's dominating us is the Syria conflict. Mm-hmm. Now, when things got tense at the beginning of last week, suddenly we saw the markets fluctuate, but then they had other excuses for why the market was dipping, and it was, like you said, it was the Fed, it was tapering. Is this going to affect us? Let's just take either scenario. We go in and we get out and we do what we said we're going to do, and there's no real repercussion. I mean, what do the markets want, do you think?
My opinion is if we go in with precision, take out the people that need to be gone, get in, get out, I think the market would not react in a negative way.
Yeah.
If we go and set up camp, have debates, it's televised for weeks on end,
drag it out,
the country can't agree, then it's going to be terrible. Because it could spill over to other things.
What if it starts affecting the oil markets? They've gotten the commodities have gotten speculative about this. You got the Suez Canal involved with Egypt and turmoil in that whole region, which is not really new for the region.
Right.
But suddenly we're worried about oil supply, and we're seeing that. Do the markets pay attention to that? Because I know sometimes the speculators are, if we're going to have a hot economy, the price is going to go up because demand's going up. But right now it's an artificial thing that's influencing the price of gas.
It would affect it. 7 out of the 10 largest companies are oil companies in that industry.
Yeah.
So it affects it. You've got hundreds of thousands of jobs. You have prices at the pump. You have fear that could drive up prices at the pump. And if you hit certain lines, distribution lines, through a conflict, then absolutely could drive it up. And with an economy like we're in, even though the market has done very well over the past 2 years, for most people, their take-home pay is still not what it was in 2007. So if gas prices go up to $1 a gallon, then it's certainly going to affect people in a very negative way, in the market as well.
Isn't that really the chain of events that happened before 2008? We had an oil price spike, and that was the pin that sort of pricked the housing bubble, and then the whole thing was just sort of a chain reaction. Am I wrong?
I think very few people could go back and say exactly what caused 2008 because it wasn't just one thing. It was a series of things.
Sure.
And, I do trace a lot of it back to poor decisions in Washington that affected Wall Street and certainly bad decisions, on Wall Street that affected everybody as well.
But you guys are strategists, and in an environment like this with these, war drums, oil prices, the economy. I mean, one day we get a good report, one day we get a bad report. One day manufacturing's good, the next day the trade deficit's weird. I mean, are we just kind of numb to it now, tuning it out? Because we're kind of plodding along. We're easing. We haven't really come out of it. The GDP was a little better, but it wasn't what we need to be. I mean, how do you survive and still grow your money in an environment like this?
It's like people. We're looking at it every day. We're managing our money and our clients' money.
Yeah.
So it's very challenging when you're doing it on a daily basis. It's like watching every single play of a football game. It can be very intense. But if you only go and check the score at the end of each quarter at a football game, it's not near as intense. And that's how a lot of clients and investors behave. They're looking at their quarterly statements. They're not looking at it on a daily basis. Or some people look at it once a year. That's just like tuning in on your phone to see who won the game.
Right.
But never knowing that there might be 80 plays in a football game, and you just don't know which one really made your team lose or win that game. But when you're watching it every day, yeah, it can get pretty scary because you might have 100 points up a day, 100 points down a day, and one or two things can drastically affect the outcome of your investments.
Is that the mistake we make is getting too emotional about it and trying to guess at it ourselves? What's the dumbest thing people do when they walk in?
Well,
you're trying to be nice. I just said the dumbest thing.
The dumbest thing that can...
Let me rephrase it. What's the biggest mistake we make?
Not saving enough. It's not necessarily the investment returns that you get.
Yeah.
It's the poor savings rate across America. It's not putting, saving 15% of your total income, which you must do to have a successful retirement.
How much?
15% total, of your earnings, save at least 15%. And that's an estimate at best. We know a few things. We know, given a long and healthy life, we're all going to retire. We know that the more money we have, the more successful financial retirement we will have. And believe what you want to about what the government tells us. But I do believe this one thing they tell us, that they screwed up on Social Security. They've been telling us that they made mistakes, that there's not a lockbox with Jim McCormick's name on it with a pile of money sitting there. Mm-hmm. So we know as Americans, we've got to take it upon ourselves to save through our 401ks. If we don't have a 401k, then talk to your boss and say, we need a retirement plan. It's not hard to set up. We need to be saving in investment accounts, saving just in a bank account. We have to be saving, or we're going to have a terrible retirement.
I'm 46, and I don't know anybody my age that really thinks they're going to be receiving Social Security. We get those statements. You've been working all your life, paying into the system. The government will tell you in those statements, you'll be drawing this when you turn this age or whatever. Most people I know that are reasonable, responsible people just write that off and go, I'm on my own. I don't know that we know it'll be there, or they'll have to keep bumping that retirement age, and we'll be too old to die before we ever get there.
We won't care at that point.
Yeah. Is that a good picture?
We manage a lot of corporate retirement plans, and we'll sit with employees, and we'll talk about why you must save in the company 401k.
Yeah.
And we always address Social Security because I know that half the room is thinking, I've got Social Security. I'm going to be all right. Well, in fact, Social Security was never meant to be a retirement plan. It was meant to be a supplement to other retirement plans.
Now, one of the S's in SSI is supplemental.
Yes.
It's the word supplemental.
But people don't understand that because they've been so accustomed to having Social Security be their primary means of support upon retirement, and that's a bad plan.
But when you're planning and you're helping people plan, do you count that in the equation, or do you just almost assume because the rules are probably going to change to keep that thing solvent that it won't be there? Is the best strategy to count that as gravy if you make it to 60 whatever?
Depends on your age.
Yeah.
At your age, I wouldn't factor it in, and it'd just be gravy.
Because I got time to do something else.
You better, yeah. But if somebody's 55 and they walk in the office, I'm going to factor it in. I mean, am I going to sit there and say that they won't move the age back? I think they will move the age back. Are they going to start to tax more than up to 85% of it? Yes, I think they'll have to eventually.
Means test? Is that coming?
I think the means test would not nearly solve the problem. So I don't think that means test would actually happen because I think all it does is it upsets a ton of people, but it doesn't solve the problem.
So there's not enough money in a means test to really make the thing solvent.
There's not, but what they could do, which I don't want them to do, but what they could do is they could have all of your wages subject to Social Security tax.
Yeah.
not just the first, I think it's 100,000. So they did that, and then they means tested it. Well, they're taking a lot more money from people that will never end up getting the benefit.
Or they could be counting on Obamacare to kill off more people, so more people won't need Social Security. See
That's
how
true.
that all works for them? They're pretty smart that way. They're crafty.
They are crafty.
It's I always struggle with that because I want to think it'll be there and it'll be a portion of what I'll be able to use when I get to that time.
Yeah, but the American dream was never to have the government force savings for you so that you
Sure.
can live off the government.
Oh,
That's
I know.
not
I
the
hate
American dream. If you like that dream, you can move.
If I could opt out, I would. If they gave us an opt out option, I'd be on my own.
Yeah.
It's almost to the point now, and maybe this is irresponsible, Jim. I would tell the government, fine, keep what you've already taken from me for the last 30 years, but let me not have to pay into this thing anymore. I want out.
I'd take that deal.
Would you? How old are you?
33.
And you've got time to do it. I feel like I've got another 20, maybe 25 years left before I take it to the beach. But I would love to just not have to be hamstrung by this thing because it's really demographically it's so punishing to certain demographics who just don't live as long as others, and you can't really pass it down to anybody. It's just a mess. It's a bad system.
There's certainly design flaws in it. I'm certainly not going to count on it, but what we can count on is making sure that we're all saving. Because we have to be responsible,
On our
making sure we're putting money away on our own.
So 15%, and then still dive into those 401ks.
Yeah, 15%. If whatever you're making, save at least 15%, be it a
Gross.
combination gross.
Yeah.
And that's just a guess at best. But we know that maybe the true financial security is abundance, making sure you have enough stacked up, and then I think you have a safer retirement.
Interesting. I'm going to grab a phone call real quick. And look, you're welcome to call in. Jim will be with us to the top of the hour. Jim McCormick with Pryor McCormick. Fred's in Birmingham. What's up, Fred?
Hey, what's going on tonight?
Hey, man.
I hope all of you are safe tonight. I didn't catch the young man's name.
Jim McCormick.
Pardon me?
Jim McCormick.
Jim. Glad to meet you, Jim.
You as well.
Listen, I want to challenge you on one statement you made just now. You seem like a very intelligent young man that I wouldn't mind having my money tied up with. I'll tell you that. But listen, you said that Social Security was never designed to live off of. That's not true. When it first came out, the average lifespan of a man was about 62 years old, and a woman about 70. And it was made for a person to be 65 and live the last few years of their senior life off Social Security. My parents did it. My grandparents did it. And so did many other senior people. Now, times have changed, and you're most correct when you say now it is not the time to be looking to live off of Social Security. But what a shame that we can't just go back in time just a little bit and have a different type of Social Security. Something that they've been talking about recently, and I've heard you go to that 15%. Wouldn't it be awesome?
Fred, let me just interrupt. I think you're partially right. You're right. Life expectancies change the equation. The cost of living changed the equation.
Yes.
But when it was enacted, it was designed to be, quote, supplemental. It was never supposed to be a retirement, a full-fledged retirement program. Over time, and Jim, I'm sorry to step in, but I deal with this a lot. Politicians started calling it that and promising that. Mm-hmm. But I think Jim's right. In the inception, it was not sold. That's why it's called supplemental social insurance, whatever SSI stands for.
Leland, hold on. You're forgetting something, though.
What?
Back in those days, 99% of workers were union workers with pensions. They had union pensions. And see, that's why they did that.
Well, it wasn't. Jim's telling you now, just like then, you had something else you had to count on. Now you got to find something, your 401k or your own savings, because it's still supplemental. I
won't take too much of your time up. I was going to say this. No, I'm not saying Jim's not right. Oh, he's absolutely correct. It's just there has been a time change. There's been a life expectancy, health advances, and things of that nature. And all of you young folks, hey, Jim, I'm glad you're young, brother. I'm happy
Fred,
for you.
Hey, we appreciate your call, buddy.
Fred.
Yeah, I just had to kind of jump in there, Jim. I'm sorry. I sort of knee-jerked that one. You want to add anything to that?
Well, originally Social Security was never supposed to be taxed, and it was supposed to be optional.
Yeah.
And now it's mandatory, and it's taxed. So it's become something that Congress had the chance to fix it. Now it's just simply too late. So I'm going to be paying in so that generations before me can get their promise, knowing that I won't get my promise. And while I don't like it, I'm okay with it because I know that, unfortunately, that has to happen. Otherwise, they'll be out.
People are stuck.
They're stuck. And so I know that I have to pay in so that they're not stuck because they weren't under this ruse of Social Security. They were promised it and they counted on it. Well, the government's told us, Jim, don't count on it. So therefore, I'm not.
And a different generation, older than us, were told you can count on it. We're the government. We'll always be there for you. And then over time, what happens? They put markers in there and use the money for everything else. There is no trust fund. That's a myth.
Correct.
And it's now becoming insolvent. We used to have several workers for each one worker that was drawing, and that'll soon flip. We'll have more people taking out than putting into the system.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. How about that? And when does that come? When the baby boomers really get full-fledged retirement? I mean, some of them are starting to edge into it now.
It's coming. I think it's 2018 or it's sometime in the very recent, in the recent future, if you will, that it's supposed to be happening.
When it's upside down.
But everything can get pushed back with, manipulating counting. We were already supposed to hit the debt ceiling, and now we're going to hit it October. So they extended it with some tricky accounting for 5 months. So we're going to hit that in October, and that'll be another financial debate. And maybe we're not in the middle of, a war, if you want to call it a war, with Syria at that time, because that's not what we need. We don't need to have a huge, tense debate about debt ceiling. In October, that's what would happen in the middle of a war.
Now, October has historically been a scary month.
Yes, it has.
And all this stuff's coming to a head about the same time.
Sure.
So how do you find confidence as an investor right now? And I know y'all do a lot more than stocks. You manage money into wherever it's safest and best growth right now. How do you do that on a daily basis?
You stay true to your risk tolerance.
Yeah.
If you're moderate in 2008 means you're scared to death.
Yeah.
Moderate in 2009 means you want to start sticking your head out of your shell a little bit as the market's
going up. Are people doing that now? Are they getting confidence back, or are they just getting frustrated?
People are getting confidence back because they're not watching the financial markets on a daily basis. They're not even watching the regular, national news on a daily basis and know exactly what's going on. But if people are paying attention on a regular basis, then sure, there's cause for concern. But if you stay true to your risk tolerance, say it's moderate, and you're making sure that you're making moves as the market moves, and that might be moving a little bit more into equity and out of real bonds completely, bond funds that is, and making sure that you've got some powder dry.
But you got to have the flexibility to move around when things hit.
Absolutely.
Steve tells a story a lot about how you guys had a money manager that just woke up before 2008 and decided he's moving everybody out to cash.
He got
and
lucky.
Saved a lot of people.
He did. I mean, his was combination luck, combination fear, combination lack of investment options that he saw out there. So he just took 100% of cash. And it turned out, that was October 6th, I believe, 2008. Turned out to be probably the best financial move that guy ever made.
Instinct?
Luck. There was not much instinct to that. It was a combination of looking out in the investment markets and not saying anything that you want to invest in.
Yeah.
And it was a combination of fear, and it was a combination, of overall luck that he went to cash. So I don't think it's instinct. I don't think you can do instinct on it.
Sure.
But you have algorithms that help direct you what you may want to do in making moves.
And it spits out something and says, time to move.
Yeah.
Something's going on.
And you're going to be right. You're going to be wrong. You just have to be right more than you're wrong.
I could not be in your business. I don't have the nerve for it. I couldn't do it. I just sit here and butt my gums. Here's Janine on a cell phone. What's up, Janine?
Hey, Leland. I have two things, a real quick thing. I always tell my parents that I am working to pay for their retirement.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way I'm ever going to get Social Security.
We're kind of in that box, right?
Yeah, it's like I can be happy knowing that at least the people that raised me are getting their retirement.
And I'm like you and Jim. I mean, I'm okay. I feel like you can't leave those folks hanging, and nobody would suggest that. But we do need to be addressing this issue.
Right. And I have a quick question for Jim. I had a guy do my taxes 2011 who, when we filed my taxes, I got a letter back from the IRS that said, you forgot the new homeowner's tax repayment schedule for the first-time homeowners thing.
Mm-hmm.
Got ours in 2004, which was like $8,000 credit, which we found out the next year later was 2008. So the next year later was totally not repayable. Ours was repayable.
That's right.
So we used this letter where, like, we owe $850. So we saw a new accountant because the guy took the letter and went, oh, yeah, you owe that too. And that was basically all he did with us. So we saw a new guy, and he was like, that doesn't make any sense. You should have only been owing $500 a year in that schedule, and I don't even think you guys should have started paying yet since it was 2011 and you just set your house in 2008. So I'm wondering if you have any insight, because we looked at the tax code while he was doing our taxes this time, and we can't figure out where the $850 came from the IRS, and we really don't know. And he's like, I'm still researching it, but I thought maybe another person's opinion might be good.
You're right. And the first series that came out, you had to pay it back. Then the next one you didn't. So the one
Right.
you have on that $850, check and see if it's penalties plus repayment.
I get, but wasn't the repayment though supposed to start 5 years after you owned your house?
I'm not sure how long it was, but I'm thinking that since you didn't file the schedule with your tax return, potentially part of that $850 or maybe all that $850 is penalties for not doing it.
Louise.
That's what I would. But the IRS is actually pretty good about that stuff. So if you just have the documentation, and always, when you sign the tax form, it's your responsibility. The CPA just prepares it for you. But since they forgot to put the schedule in there, if that is just fee, a lot of time your new CPA can go back to the IRS with a letter, tell them the situation. A lot of times they'll either drop or drastically reduce that fee.
Oh, okay. All right,
You can definitely have your CPA go to bat for you and write a letter. I've done that, or I've had my CPA do that a lot of times, and a lot of times you can get it reduced.
The new CPA, not the old CPA.
Right. Yeah, your new CPA. They can go in and kind of save the day for you because the IRS can be an extreme pain, but if you're proactive with them, they're not too bad to deal with.
Okay, cool.
And we've done that with individuals and with companies, and I would give that a shot and see if it helps.
Okay, thank you so much.
Good question and good answer, Jim, because I had no idea what y'all were talking about. I was over here sort of spaced out. I was playing poker like John McCain on my phone here while they were doing that. Hey, Jay, you got anything you want to contribute to that? That's pretty good stuff. So let me just learn a lesson from her experience. Keeping your documentation, being aggressive with your money. And some folks, like you said, they'll open the statement. They're depressed by it. They'll throw that thing in a drawer somewhere. But everything with your financial picture needs to be organized and kept up with.
Yeah, you got to be a grown-up. With money comes responsibility, and it's making sure that you're keeping the records, for the IRS, because you don't want to go against them. You want to make sure you have all your documentation. It's making sure that you're keeping up with your statements and being active with your money, because there's certain things you could do with your taxes. It's something called tax loss harvesting, which is a way where you're able to take losses in your investment account and offset other gains. Very important part of financial planning is doing tax loss harvesting.
Tax loss harvesting.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're keeping up with that statement through the year of investment, make sure you take all that to the CPA too.
Oh, yes.
For the proper
and make
planning.
sure you're proactive with your CPA, because keep in mind how busy these people are.
Oh, yeah. Especially that
first
time of
few
year.
months. The best friend to a CPA is somebody that files an extension.
Give them a little more time.
Absolutely.
And they like it all organized. And if you bring it and you got it, but if you don't have it, you're just lost at that point, and you're in a hurry, and there's a deadline, and then you miss that opportunity.
Oh, you're in trouble. And my CPA is extremely detailed. So I have everything. Everything is given to her in perfect order. She'll pick through it and challenge me on things, and keeps me between the lines.
Just keep that stuff during the year, and I guess don't wait till the last minute, because I hate that. The paper shuffling is what bothers me.
Because a few days, 9/15 is when the individual income taxes are due if you file an extension.
Jim, look, I appreciate you coming in and sort of, I guess, pinch hitting for Steve. You're his partner there at Pryor McCormick. Tell folks how they can call you if they need more expert advice.
Sure, and call us at the office, 205-986-0060. That's 205-986-0060.
What's that website again?
PryorMcCormick.com.
And on there, you'll also get that 401k sanity program that you guys
That's correct.
It's pretty good stuff.
I've
been on there looking at it. It just totally makes sense. Good advice if you're in a 401k right now.
Thousands of companies listed, tons of opportunity for employees.
It's just a wealth of information, and y'all just put it out there for folks, which I think is cool. Jim McCormick with Pryor McCormick, thanks for your time, man. Top of the hour, let's do the news. Back in a minute. Stay tuned.